Hey, folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the tornado ready to go.
Second Tom Badgett. It's unavailable. It's tax day, technically, April 15th, so I don't know. Even though there's been a month extension, that means he's jammed up today because people wanted it on the tax timeline. I have given him a message to patch in.
I looked at that series with his phone, by the way.
Yeah, isn't that funny? You don't embarrass somebody in public. Do it right in the middle of a party. You know, like, hey, look this up for me. Anyway, so Tom is not with us, but we have plenty to talk about, from combat sports to boxing. I actually watched a little bit of boxing this weekend. Didn't get to see my tree guy. Joe Smith Jr.
I watched 10 hours straight.
Got a big win.
That was a good fight.
But the one I did see was
I
Tom.
was literally getting all 10 hours worth of what we got.
Alright. The one I did see was Imanis Staniotis there beating Thomas Dulorme. However you want to pronounce it. That was just a great tactical fight. Just the power. Ripping shots.
So some woman has my phone number, huh?
Yeah. What's going on with that?
Are you sure you're calling the right?
Are you pranking us, Tom?
So that's impossible. That's impossible. You can't have two phone numbers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Woman kept answering.
Sure. Audience, are you sure you have the right number?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I even dialed it from what Tony gave me. And a woman answered. She said, no, this isn't Tom. We thought it was Patricia because we accidentally called her last week, from a previous guest.
Oh, you know what? It may have been Tony. It may have had the old cell number. Okay.
No, we were calling both numbers. Yeah, we have you as Tom Padgett Show, and we have you as Tom Padgett Regular. And Tom Padgett Regular just says unavailable. But when we called Tom Padgett Show tonight, it was like a woman answered.
Yeah, it's 330-812-9386. Okay. Well, drama.
Yeah, I'm going to have to change the entry name or something. It's weird. Anyway, we were just talking boxing. One big fight I saw was Imanis Staniotis and Thomas Dulorme. And it was a good fight. Imanis was ripping a lot of body shots and just very tight defense. And Dulorme just couldn't do it. Couldn't hang. Joe Smith Jr., the tree guy, like I said, I didn't get to see it, but Tony did, so he can tell us about it. I know he won. Tony there? We lost Tony now?
What's going on? Tony, come in.
The Twilight Zone, Tom. I'm in a portal here. You need to help me out. Use your psychic powers.
Yeah. So some vibes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, buddy. Yeah, Jeff, we're just getting on Joe Smith Jr. Yeah. What do you think?
You have to tell us about it, Tony.
I think the cut really hampered him this year because he got cut in the first round. Gladsick's really awkward style, I think, bothered Smith a little bit.
Early in the fight, I mean, after the first 3 rounds, I had it 2-1 on Galactic. And then, when Smith was in there and he was working inside to the body, I mean, he was doing really well. But then when he was sitting on his hands, because it looked like he was almost looking for the perfect punch, he was letting the fight get taken away from him. And like I said, that cut, I think, was really bothering him. That fight was a back-and-forth fight. And, I had it a draw, as did, I think, Timothy Bradley. The fact that Smith got it, I don't think there was any problem with that. Like I said, I had it a draw, but there was maybe a round or two, like the 3rd or 4th round, that could have went either way, that I gave to Maxim. But, Tom, I was telling Rich before we all got on together, I did 10 straight hours of fights on Saturday. From 2 o'clock on the Zone over in England. That ended at 5. I sat outside for a half hour, and then the ESPN Plus undercard started at 5:30 on the app. Watched all of that. Saw my boy Sonny Canto, with a very impressive first-round knockout.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, saw a couple big knockouts on that app. Those fights ended, so I went over to Showtime and started that card, and I was watching some of that. Then I was flipping back and forth between ESPN and Showtime. Just as the Joe Smith Jr. fight was ending and the decision was being rendered, I flipped over to watch boot tennis. I watched fights from 2 p.m. till midnight.
Nice. Did you see the big knockout?
I was frustrated about.
Go ahead.
I was frustrated about the lack of the jab early on. Though I kept yelling at the television, "Where's your jab? Where's your jab?" And he did make some adjustments in the middle of the fight. I noticed that with Smith, but I mean, he was leading with left hooks, and I mean,
oh my God,
he got away with, and it's like, damn, I don't know if he needs a new trainer or what it was, but he did, to his credit. I mean, he's up his nails. He made the adjustments, but I'm thinking with against Bivol outboxed him, and Big man, that's he's got to get some of those basics down. I mean, because fighting that herky style, I mean, you got to stabilize him with the jab, and he just wasn't using it.
And sometimes, like, if you ever go back and you watch, like, 2 fighters, and one is a very traditional type fighter, and one is a very unorthodox type of fighter, it comes down to who can dictate the pace. So I'll give you a perfect example. You could have took a guy like Nazim Hamed, who was very herky-jerky, very awkward, very unorthodox. And a lot of guys really struggled with him because they didn't know what angles punches were coming from. They couldn't time his movements and all that. But when he got in there with a guy like Marco Antonio Barrera, who was a consummate, well-schooled boxer, Barrera was like, you know what? Every time he does something, I'm just going to jab and stick and move. Stick, move. Stick, move. I'm not going to let this guy set his feet. I'm not going to fall for his unorthodox, tactics. And that really schooled a guy I like Hamed. Taking another guy that was a personal favorite of mine is Vinnie Paz. Now, Vinnie was, he could box, he could brawl. He was very unorthodox. It kind of depended on what mood he was in. But some of the fights that he lost, it was usually if he fought a guy that really utilized a jab and kept him from his, awkward rushes and his, flurries of power punches. Yeah. So there's, but then sometimes you'll have a guy that's a consummate, very well-schooled boxer, but because the guy is so unorthodox, like Emmanuel Augustus used to do this to guys all the time. He would take well-schooled boxers and throw them off their game because he was so herky-jerky. It depends on who controls the tempo.
Right. The body work is great, but that jab sets everything up. And I think when he made that adjustment, because halfway through that fight, I had him behind a bit. But, I mean, you never know what the judges were thinking. But I just knew this was a dogfight, and something was going to have to change. And to his credit, he really came on strong. But I would agree with you on that. It could easily have been a draw. Easily.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have bothered me a bit, or if the other, it would have went the Mexicans' way for a round. Now, if it would have been, one of those 10 rounds to 2 or something like that, that would have been ridiculous. But it was a split decision. It was close. But Smith's got some work to do. I mean, I think he knows that. And the question is, can he pick it up? We'll see.
We always do this, styles make fights. He may have a less challenging time, and I'm not to say, under those terms, but in a fight with Beterbiev, he might have an easier time not winning the fight, I don't want to say, but adapting to a style because he's not as a herky-jerky type of guy. He's not an awkward guy. Beterbiev is very much in your face, and a guy like Joe Smith might be like, I prefer this much better. Let's just stand in there and rock 'em, sock 'em, robot.
Good point.
Doing all this goofy movement and rolling your hands and dropping and making a goofy step here. He might say, you know what, give me the guy that's going to stand right in front of me.
Yeah, that's it. That's a very good point.
They said, I remember they were talking, back from some great Philadelphia fighters back in the 70s, and they were talking about, Benny Briscoe, who was one of the toughest guys, in the history of boxing. And they said, Benny, his thing was like, let's go iron for iron and see who, wilts first.
Tony, there was another Philly middleweight back in the 60s, Joey Archer. I don't know if you're familiar with him much.
Yep.
But, you talk about a good jab. He really didn't have much punching power. But my God, he had one of the best jabs and almost made his career around it. I think he really got the most out of what he had. And that jab was so important.
Yeah. And people talk about jabs all the time. And one of the first things, like whenever I work with somebody, especially with, somebody with little to no boxing experience, never put gloves on before in their life, the first thing I do is I tell them to get in a stance. Because most of the time, if they have no boxing experience, they generally put their power hand front because they want to use that as much as possible. So then after they do that, instinctively, I give them a hand wrap or a ball or something small, and I say, pretend you're Game 7 of the World Series. You're the pitcher for the last out. And I get like I'm a catcher, and I was like, pitch me this ball. And they then put their lead foot front, and they wind up, and they keep their lead foot in the air, and they rear back, and they throw the ball at me. And I said, well, why are you changing your feet then? Well, and they said something. I'm like, no, you need your lead foot in the back. And then I start telling them about the jab and why the jab's so important. I said, there's a bunch of different kinds of jab. A jab is not a one-trick pony. I'm like, you have a George Foreman, Sonny Liston power jab. It's like a shotgun jab. You have that Muhammad Ali whip jab. You have the jab where you're getting it in your opponent's face, trying to set up your power punch of your right hand. You have a jab, that is finding the range where you're just putting it out there to see where the guy is, like you're blind, and you're trying to touch him so you can see where he is so you can hit him with another shot. Or you have the jab as defense, and I say, I'm standing here right now, come at me like you're going to attack, and they come right to me. And then I tell them, I back them up, I say, do it again, and when I do it, I start flicking jabs out, and they hesitate. I said, you know what I'm doing? I'm keeping you off me even though I'm not trying to hit you. By me flicking that jab is you're staying off me right now. And I said, so that is not a one-trick pony. It's a very versatile punch.
Yep. Favorite punch of
So
mine.
hopefully Smith got some good lessons Saturday night.
I don't know what punch it was, but F.A. Ajagba landed one of the knockout punches of the weekend.
Boom.
What a strange knockout that was.
Oh,
that was
brutal.
a strange one.
Brian
knockout on the feet. He was out.
Now this is the same guy that the dude quit and walked out of the ring on, right? Before the fight started?
Oh, yeah. Tom, we're confusing two fights here. The F.A. Ajagba fight was the one where he hit that guy Howard with the right hand and crumbled him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other fight was when the guy got hit and he was like on the ropes. The guy could have teed off.
Jonathan Milton, right?
But he didn't. A Jagba is the one. Yeah, a Jagba was the one where the bell rang and the guy was like, "I'm out," and just walked out of the ring.
Yeah, the other one that was making headlines was that one.
My friend,
that one. I remember that one.
Yeah, my friend didn't know that. I texted him. I'm like, "Yeah," I was telling him about it. He goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, she's seen this fight like 2 years ago, Mike." I said, "The bell rang. Like the guy was in there and he was making faces and all that. Like." And then I said, they went out, they touched gloves, and he goes in the back and whatever. They're in their corners, ding, ding. He's like, "I'm out." And just walked out.
That was FA, though, right? That he was refusing to fight?
That was FA Jagba,
right.
yeah.
All right.
He's the one that knocked out that boy Howard last week, where he hit him with the right hand and dropped him in a heap.
Yeah, that was brutal.
I watched the fight, though, from England. I watched Conor Benn fight, and, he tore that boy apart.
Yeah.
I think it was something like 41 seconds. They had some good fights over there. Like I said, then I went to whole ESPN card. And that boy he fought was a nice little step up. The guy was 6-3-1, had a nice little win in the bubble last year, and then so he took him out pretty impressively. And they said and I noticed this the last time I saw Sonny fight in person, which was on the Beaterbav card in Philadelphia a year and a half ago, where he came out and he was really sticking a Sonny Liston, George Foreman hard, heavy jab, and then he used that to set up his left hook and his body punches, and that was a stoppage at the end of the first round. So you had a couple good heavyweight fights. You had the Showtime card, which had a couple good scraps on it. I mean, it was a good all-around, all-day of boxing. I guess that was good because that was one of my last days of quarantine. So I had nothing else to do.
Sweet. Well, we got some coming up this weekend as well, but I wanted to do a couple boxing stories. There's actually quite a bit of crossover involved here, too. But first of all, we got to talk about the fight of the week, the best boxing match you'll ever see. If you're a noob, then Askren versus Jake Paul. That's going down this weekend. Finally going to solve the mystery of who's the best fighter in the world here. Between these two, I don't know what it proves, actually, but it's going to be entertaining, I believe. Especially considering the little side story involved with Dana White wanting to bet so much money on Ben Askren here. Talk about a guy who basically downgraded the guy his entire career until they made a deal for him. Now he wants to bet on him. It's a crazy story. Anyway, Ben Askren probably pissed a lot of people off today when he said that it's easier. Boxing is going to be easier than MMA. So.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe easier to train for,
well, I
but
mean,
I don't know if you can necessarily say that it's an easier sport. Period. Because, like we always talk about with the concussion issues.
I wouldn't say that at all.
With the concussion issues in particular, like the thing about boxing that's way different than MMA, as far as a lifelong career doing it, like. You're almost guaranteed to get hit in the head a lot. In an MMA fight, you can wrap somebody up in a choke and it'll be done, There's a lot of ways to win the fight. In boxing, the only way you win is by going the distance or knocking the guy out. So, I would never say
and then also consider, Rich, consider the culture.
Yeah. Because
in MMA, if it's not going your way, tapping out is not the end of the world, and I think a lot of that's due to the submission aspect, the positions you're in. But in boxing, you don't quit. Roberto Duran did once, and it's still honored him forever. I mean, it's a whole different story. And in MMA, you have options. I mean, if things aren't going your way on the feet, hopefully you can get it on the floor or the other way around. Uh-huh. The problem is in boxing, you can't knee, you can't elbow, you can't take down, you can't wrestle and submit. It's just your two fists, and you better be good. That's all you have to rely on.
Yeah, And, Jake Paul
Ben
is...
Askren to say something like that is very inexperienced.
Jake Paul is a YouTuber and everything like that, but it's all he's done is boxing. He hasn't done MMA, so he's not confused by any of that. He's not going to go for a takedown. He hasn't been a wrestling champion. So, all of Ben Askren's boxing in competition has been to try to set up the takedown. Admittedly, he says that. So, while he was successful at that, that's not 3 rounds of boxing. That's not, minute rounds.
Okay, but I'm going to make a counter argument. Look at where he trained with the former guest of ours.
Huh. Who did he train with? Who did he train with?
Duke Rufus.
Oh, Duke Rufus.
Duke Rufus.
Oh, boy. Well, he's a better kickboxing coach than a boxing coach.
Well, still,
yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure the Duke has boxers in there, and I would say if Askren is really dedicating himself, forget the grappling, forget everything else, and just purely focus on that. I don't know. I'm a little emotional about this.
Oh, I'll be the first to tell you. I hate the whole idea of Jake Paul, making a name for himself like this and making more than professional boxers who have been doing it all their lives.
Well, for one thing, I don't understand. I don't understand who he is, what he does. I guess he's a multi-gazillionaire on YouTube. What, does this guy teach physics? Is he a philosopher? Is he a scientist, a businessman? What does he do? I don't get it.
It reminds me of a joke. It reminds me of a joke, not because he's a joke, but it reminds me of this joke that's kind of involved, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So this lady goes into the Chase Manhattan Bank, right? And she says, I want to withdraw all my money. And she has to meet this guy who's the president of the bank because it's so much money. And so the president of the bank asks her, why do you have all this money? How'd you make it? And she says, well, I make bets. He goes, oh, really? What kind of bets? She goes, well, for instance, I'm going to make you a bet right now. When I come back to get all my money tomorrow, after we do all this paperwork, your balls will be square. The guy's like, whatever. This lady's crazy. So she's like, whatever. Okay, I'll make that bet. Can't lose that bet. So then she leaves. Comes back the next day with her lawyer. And lawyer stands in the doorway there, and she walks into the president's office, and she says, all right, I'm ready to withdraw my money. And he says, what about our bet? And she goes, all right, well, pull down your pants. So she checks, and nope, doesn't have square balls. And the guy starts laughing. Like, well, I guess I won my money. And then you see the lawyer banging his head against the wall. The guy says, what the hell's wrong with him? So she bet that guy, the lawyer, twice as much that she would have the balls of the president of Chase Manhattan Bank in her hands by noon tomorrow. So that's what Jake Paul does. He makes bets. He bets on himself. And like Floyd Mayweather, he has good business sense in that regard. He picks not weaklings, but people that he knows he can beat. And just looking at the weigh-in, and picture says 1,000 words. I don't care what kind of skill Ben Askren has. Without the takedown, he's not going to overcome the reach factor, the size factor, the strength factor. I mean, this guy looks twice the size of little Ben Askren. And, yeah, there's a lot of combat sports experience that, live action stuff that Ben Askren has and Jake Paul doesn't, but I think Jake Paul will turn out to be the better boxer, much to everybody's surprise. I really do. If I had a few, $100 to bet, I would.
Well, okay, is this going to be in front of a live audience?
A live audience? I don't know. Probably. It's just probably a live audience of 10 at the smallest. There's corner people and whatever.
Well, in other words, what I'm saying, Askren has big fight experience like that.
Yeah.
A lot more. and that could.
I'd love for him to win and shut the kid up.
That could be a factor.
And shoot down this thing about, these guys are great, but he's got some legitimate athletic skill, this kid. And he's his size-wise, he picked a great
okay, so then
opponent.
Then the question would be, when is he going to turn pro?
That's the thing, though.
And get a world championship.
He doesn't make money going pro and fighting the big names. He's going to make money doing gimmick fights because he's trying to create a viral sensation. He's not doing this for sporting purposes. Okay? The fact that he's going to go in there, possibly knock the hell out of this kid who's got all this MMA experience, is then going to give him the opportunity to keep shouting at Conor McGregor to fight him in a boxing match. And then that's going to sell 1 million tickets, So these are the kind of people he wants to fight. He has to have somebody that hasn't done boxing all their lives for him to have a potential to win. So he's thinking outside the box, so to speak, so he can, use this gimmick to make him money. And like I said, he's got that thing in common with Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather did that a lot. He picked particular opponents that he knew he could beat if he fought a certain way. Even Conor McGregor, he had to give him rounds to make that fight entertaining enough for people to talk about a rematch at some point. And because he knew that, it had to be a little bit closer for it to, get people entertained. But he knew he could beat Conor. And all of his fights these last few years when he's ducked out of retirement for one thing or another has always been with somebody he knows absolutely he can beat. He's not going to go and fight even Manny Pacquiao again. He won't do it. Because, he's an active, professional, long-time boxer. He'll go and fight some kickboxing guy over in some foreign country, but he's not going to fight a talented up-and-coming guy or even a champion with a belt. And neither is Jake, because he doesn't have the experience.
I really didn't realize how popular, these YouTuber and TikTok people are really becoming until a year or so ago when I was joking about Cameo. And I was like, they have some cool people on there. Like, my friend got, a gift from a guy that was, from the Philadelphia Eagles, John Dornbos, that was on America's Got Talent as a magician, not musician, a magician. So it was like, and I saw this. I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then, then I got the one this year from, comedian who's getting pretty popular. So I'm like, yeah. So I started looking at Cameo, and I was joking. I'm like, I'm going to get on Cameo, and I'm going to do my whole Philly thing. And I'm like, who the hell would pay for me, right? And I'm like, and I'm laughing about it. And my friend goes, dude, he goes, have you looked at some of the people that are on there? I'm like, no. I'm like, no. I'm like, if I go on there, I'll type in a keyword like Phillies or Eagles or, WWF or something like that and see people that I particularly like or horror movies. I got the one for my friend from the one Jason actor. And my friend's like, no, look at some of the people that are on there. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this person's a title is a YouTuber. So, exactly. I'm like, people, and some of the people are paying, charging, some are small, $20, $30. Some people are charging, $50 or so bucks. And I'm like, wait, people are paying, $30, $40, $50 to get somebody that's considered a YouTuber? I'm like, well, are you I have 100 videos on my YouTube page. I mean, do you want a video from me? Because
the thing is,
there and do that shit?
There's something called an influencer market. So these people...
Yeah, people are podcasters. Well, Rich, we're podcasters. Nobody seems to be banging our doors down. We're...
Well, I guess we haven't mastered the viral part of it.
Influential shit.
If we get to a viral status where everybody's, out there, gotta listen to this show this week, I wish we could figure out what got us the 22,000 listens there in one show on Blog Talk Radio for Hector Camacho. I guess it was the fact that we interviewed him a week after his dad died. So, maybe that was part of it. But it was breaking news, his reaction. So that helped, I guess. But Yeah, there's a lot of science behind it. I haven't really done enough with our YouTube channel, believe it or not. I mean, I've just been pretty much dormant for the last few years, but I got to get back on it. I almost bought this course a few years ago. They kept sending me the free parts of it that you could get you into it. But it's this guy that's basically explaining how the whole setup works with these people. They have like content houses, they call them. And they put all these people in them, and they're all creating content for YouTube all the time. And then they corroborate with each other, and they coordinate things, and they learn. They get people come in and give them seminars on different things. So they put this course together on how they do it all. And basically the way they make most money is people that want famous people or influential people to endorse something. We'll say, hey, you've got great videos on this subject, and we'd like you to put like a can of Coca-Cola in there, and we'll pay you $10,000 just for putting the can in the video. And that's like on the average for these people that wants to get to a certain level of viewership and subscribers. And like what they do with the free videos is they give you these little tips that they're going to teach you in the video as like teasers. But one of the teasers that's crucial, I think, that I noticed is that they tell you in every video, hit that like button, hit subscribe. You have to
hit that like button and subscribe.
Yeah, you have to physically tell the people that to get that to happen. You can't just put it in the description or whatever. You have to encourage it. And that people will listen. They'll just do it, even if they never go back to that page.
That makes sense, Rich.
So it's
I'm gonna guy. If you tell me to hit the like button, I purposely won't.
Yeah. Unless you really hate the content, you really want to piss the person off. But it's just like little things like that, and then how they film stuff, what the best cameras are. And they did a big test on all the different cameras, and it turned out at that time that they did that series. It was a couple of years ago now, I think, when I first learned of the whole series. Basically, they said that the Apple iPhone camera is the best. Even like some regular, top model digital cameras weren't as good for internet and posting stuff to social media as the iPhone was. So it's amazing how fast cell phones are developing. But anyway, yeah, it's all about just getting viral, having the social network and the followers, and YouTube is one of the biggest. And Instagram is up there too, I think. Somehow, I don't know how Instagram is monetized like that, but I guess it's also product endorsements and stuff. But Paige Van Zandt, the MMA fighter, there's somebody that's made a shitload of money off of Instagram fame, with their bikini pictures and all that stuff. Now she's into the bare knuckle, so crazy, interesting story there. Anyway, we got to move on to the next one. We got here queued up Eddie Alvarez. This is the opposite story here. We have Eddie Alvarez, the MMA fighter, wanting to welcome Oscar De La Hoya back from retirement. Wants to box him. Which would be pretty crazy to think about it. It's not quite Mayweather versus McGregor, but these two guys got a little bit of a personality. So it would definitely be interesting. But anyway, he's in one championship, so obviously they're not like the UFC, and they don't have those crazy contracts where they wouldn't make it able to happen unless they made a ton of money too. But he says he's focused on the one championship belt, but he has been hearing from Oscar De La Hoya's guys. He says if that happens, Oscar De La Hoya and them guys have been reaching out, and hell, I'd love to get in there and mix it up with him. That would be one hell of a fight. I've got everybody in here in Philadelphia backing me, and the whole of Philadelphia boxing to back me up to get in there and mix it up with that guy. It would be a dream come true, and I actually think I'd do pretty damn good against him, so I'd be crazy excited about that if them guys figure that out. So there you go. Your whole city, Tony, is behind this.
Yeah, actually, my one friend that lives only about a mile from me, knows him real well because he grew up in the same neighborhood.
All right, well, you go try to see if you can train him to beat Oscar De La Hoya. How about that?
Okay.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That'd be cool. I'll take the gig. Yeah. I'd be getting paid.
All right, we got a couple good ones here before we get to a wrestling story and then go back to the upcoming boxing. Vander Holyfield making a comeback here. He's going to have, this is concerning, an 8-round exhibition. We talked about this last week that he wasn't going to fight Mike Tyson. But he's going to have an 8-round exhibition. And it's a strange opponent, especially considering we talked so much about Goody Petronelli last few weeks because of Marvin Hagler dying. Goody Petronelli's last pupil, guy I saw many times up in the gym, and whose son confused me for him at one point when I was hitting the heavy bag as a little kid. Kevin McBride is going to be the guy he faces.
Oh, wow.
So this, to me, almost says Mike Tyson turned Holyfield down, said you're not capable, and Vander turned around and said, "Oh yeah, well I'm going to do 8 rounds against the guy who beat you." I think that's what happened. But this is crazy. This is just does not make any sense. 8 rounds. Coming back from that kind of layoff against a pretty decent fighter. He's a heavy guy. But, even the last fight Goody trained him in, he looked pretty decent. He ended up retiring with Goody, but, this is crazy. He's a much younger guy, I believe. Anyway, we'll see how fit he is. This is going to happen on the undercard of a big event, too. See if I can find it. Okay, just get all the right place on me. But yeah, if you've seen Evander Holyfield recently, he doesn't have like a noticeable slowing of speech or anything, but he's definitely, not really able to organize his own finances, figure out his own life situation. Like, he literally had to have, when I saw him last, Alex Rodriguez come in and teach him how to make sure people don't take advantage of him. Because so many people have hooked his name to certain products that are junk. And, so it's just kind of like that first sign of your mental faculties are slipping early, which happens to a lot of boxers, especially heavyweights, I would think. But yeah, June 5th, he hasn't fought since 2000.
So I guess Holyfield's candy bars didn't sell too well
in GNC.
I remember that episode. Yeah. I guess that didn't go over too well.
No, probably not. So Holyfield, he has a record of 44-10-2. McBride 35-10-1, and that was 2005 when McBride knocked out Tyson, put him into retirement at the end of his career. And McBride actually retired in 2011 as well. So they've both been retired as long. So maybe it's not too much of a mismatch. But I just wonder, how much is left? Are these two guys going to be like, hey, let's make this look good, but remember that we're a couple old guys beating on each other. But Holyfield's got to be much older. He's in his 50s. I don't think McBride is older than 48, 49.
Yeah, Holyfield will be 59 this year.
58.
Oh my God! You got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep. He was born in 62.
You know what's crazy, Tom?
Do the math.
Yeah, you think about it, and then like when you do like the math on that, it's like, Vander, I think, was like 28 or 29 when he beat Douglas for the heavyweight title. And it's like, Tony, that was 30 years ago, right? And it's like, holy shit, you're right. That was 1990.
Do the math.
I don't like math. It makes me sad.
Oh, I hate math.
Yeah, but I love math because it's the ultimate truth.
That's why we thought we weren't going to have you on the show tonight, Tom. We were like, well, maybe some businesses have to do by the actual deadline. Because April 15th,
No, not really. But some, I think just about all states have followed the federal. So we were good on that. But we still have our, I didn't want to talk about it. It's been a brutal year.
It's brutal.
Well, I got another month to go. Actually, my last day with TurboTax will be May 22nd. Man, I'm just exhausted. I feel like in the old UFCs, they used to have like sudden death. You go for 3 rounds, and they'd say one more round. That's what I feel like now. It's like you're running a marathon, and all of a sudden, well, you got to keep going. It's like, damn. Yeah.
Well, imagine that. It's like, when they say, like, the one more round thing. Like, imagine, like, today, it's like, you get your gloves taken off, and it's like, oh, man, it's like, you whatever, you're standing there, and it's like, oh, shit, I got to glove back up.
Yeah. I mean, it's brutal, and that's what this feels like. But I know that another month, and then that's going to be, I'm taking about a week of doing nothing.
There you go. This story isn't loading. Apparently there's some big deal with Floyd Mayweather going on, and UFC bosses and Ryzen, and I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about it next week if it turns out to be true, but we're going to skip to this story before we move on to upcoming boxing. Like I said, Tony's going to like this one. It's a professional wrestling angle to it. A guy named Michael Dawkins down there in Florida. Kind of an interesting character, like our last Florida guest with his connections to wrestling, the announcer there. This guy, Michael Dawkins, they call him the gimmick attorney. He has been making a name for himself for helping wrestlers get their nicknames trademarked down there in Florida. Says,
oh, wow.
It's a niche area of the law. But wrestling is a huge industry, especially in Florida. But it's got an Ohio connection too, Tom. Believe it or not. He's based out of the Shoemaker Law Firm in Toledo, Ohio, where he resides. But because the Tampa Bay area is where many professional wrestlers live, Dawkins has split time in the Tampa Bay office since taking on the specialty in late 2018. So maybe you could get like a trademark specialty and join up with them. Go from Ohio to Florida half the time. He says you go where the work is, and he's not the only attorney who represents wrestlers in trademark matters, but he's definitely the most prolific. He has filed nearly 150 trademarks on behalf of wrestlers, according to the Trademark Office's website. Guess who the names include? WWE's Ash Flair, All Elite Wrestling's Chris Jericho. Real name is? Do you know that?
Oh, it's Chris Irvine, isn't it?
Exactly. And he actually lives in Tampa. Other wrestlers, he can't use those characters' names. But, or other wrestlers can't use those characters' names that he has traded. So, yeah. Pretty crazy.
It's a funny thing, with WWE. And I remember reading stories from guys that were, WWE wrestlers, and one of them being Mick Foley when he was first getting signed to the organization back 25 years ago. He had been trying to join them for years. They weren't interested. They finally, had an idea for him, and he was, for his whole career, we was Cactus Jack, and he said something like, what about, no, we want to put you under a mask. And he's like, why can't I just be Cactus Jack? I'm like, no, because basically you know, you've been cactus jack your whole career. We want something that's going to differentiate you from our competition. But the really was that they wanted to get a character they could market and make their own, so they could license it. I mean, that was behind it. And it's like, it's funny, like, you have certain guys that, like, came to the WWE with a name. And I'll give you a perfect example was the Dudley Boys. They were from ECW out of Philadelphia, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, and they wrestled, then they moved to WWE as the Dudley Boys, and they made a wonderful career out of there. They were leaving. Vince McMahon's like, I'm keeping the name. You came here with the name, but I'm keeping it. I licensed it now. Yeah. They had to go to another organization. They had to be like Bully Ray instead of Bubba Ray, and like,
it's like
something else with like Devon.
When David Letterman switched networks,
I was waiting for them to do one of these.
He couldn't use certain people that he had on the last show. You remember that?
Yeah.
Wait, Jesus. Such a
I do.
Contract.
I do remember that. Here would have been the real funny one. You know, when they had Kurt Angle for all those years, and then Kurt, you know, left to go to TNA, Total Nonstop Action. Imagine if they had like, yeah, we own your name, but that's my real name. Doesn't matter. It's ours now. Your name can be Kurt Angel, but you are no longer Kurt Angle because we own that name. That's my real name.
Yeah. Well, I had a case where the doctor trademarked his own name, plastic surgeon, and I wasn't sued, but I was named in the injunction. So that's where I went to the highest level of court I've ever gone to, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and I tried to get the judge thrown out for being biased because she had all kinds of connections to the guy's medical background. So basically, you know, he went to the Indiana State University. That was a Clarion Healthcare overseen company. He had his facility at a Clarion Healthcare building he paid rent to. He paid his malpractice insurance to Clarion Healthcare. The judge is on the board of directors for Clarion Healthcare. So the no-brainer. It should be thrown out, right? Take it all the way to the Seventh Circuit. They shoot it down. Then a guy retires as a judge from the Seventh Circuit and decides that he's going to help people who represent themselves because they're always getting screwed. So I'm thinking, well, I hope my case is one of the ones that motivated him to do that. But the doctor basically trademarked his own name and wanted to take a hold of everything where this lady mentioned his name, which is not proper use of the trademark situation. You don't trademark your name to protect people from using it, like in criticism of you. You protect it so that nobody can operate a business that's confusingly similar to what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, that was the funny thing. Like last year, when my aunt and uncle moved, and they moved in this house and had a hot tub out there that they wanted to, you know, get up and running again. And so they were looking at all different places and local places, you know. And the one place they looked up, which is only about 20 minutes from where I live, it's a like a spa, not a spa, but like a guy that does like whirlpool repair. And his name's like Tony Tornado, whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to go to this guy's business and I'm going to, like, you know, whip his ass. You know, if you use my name, you know, I'll pissed off about it. And then I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, this is bullshit. Because he only lives like 20 minutes from me. And so I'm like, I know he knows who I am because I'm famous. You know, I know he's seen me and he knows who Tony Tornado was. He used my name. But then a few years ago, like I said, with that cameo, and I'm showing my dad, you know, and I was like, hey, Dad, let's look at that comedian we like. You know, and I click on the video, and it's like, yo, this is a message because that's the Tony Tornado. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Is another asshole using my name now? Who's the asshole with the same name as me? And he goes, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas from your godson, Dominic. And he's got a godson named Dominic, too. I'm like, what are the odds? And I'm like, oh, wait, that's got to be a message for me.
Yeah, I get messages for other rich Bergerons.
Hey, I really know.
There's another rich Bergeron in New York who has some kind of a fitness account, and I got like a whole entire year of messages from the fitness establishment meant for him. But yeah, wrong email.
They had there was a guy. There was a current Major League Baseball player. He was with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Had the same name as a former Phillies pitcher who was a complete bust. The center fielder, and he might still be with the Diamondbacks or he might be with another team now. His name's Adam Eaton. The Phillies had a pitcher, Adam Eaton. They drafted him. They traded him. He came back to them in '07 and '08, and he was just a complete flop. I mean, he was terrible. And the fact that he got a World Series ring because he was on their team in '08, he was at the ring ceremony, everybody booed him. And they're like talking about this center fielder Adam Eaton, and they're like, yeah, he sometimes gets confused with the previous already established major leaguer Adam Eaton, and he gets fan mail from him. I'm like, that Adam Eaton gets no fan mail. The original Adam Eaton might get hate mail, at least from Philadelphia. Before I say anything else, guys, well, I just want to say I appreciate you guys having me on tonight, because the week I've had, I really need to be laughing like this. I mean, my last 2 weeks was really bad earlier this week.
Yeah, you lost the doggo, right?
Yeah.
Another golden.
Yeah, suddenly, 7 years old, not fun. Yeah, Tom, I guess you didn't hear that, did you?
No.
Yeah, we had that one dog that we've been babysitting off and on ever since Vinnie passed away 5 years ago, and she was a heavier golden retriever, and she was supposed to come over Sunday when they were, and we always enjoyed having her over. It was just, we would take her for walks and whatever, and she wasn't athletic like Vinnie, but she was just fun. She was nice. And Sunday morning, I'm still in quarantine, and I'm sleeping there, and I hear a phone call, and I'm like, I hear someone yelling, "Oh my God, something's wrong with Roxy." My dad jumps up and he bursts out of the house, and he's got tears come out of his eyes. I can't go because I'm quarantined. And my dad calls up, they're like, we can barely get her down the steps. So he goes, she's laying in her throat, we can't get her down the steps. So then they had the owner, her boyfriend was away, and he's a pretty big guy. He was away, so they called the ex-husband. He came, they got her to the vet, and my dad's like, and then we get the text message, it's internal bleeding, emergency surgery. That's not good. And then finally they were like, it's just blood all over her, all around her heart and her liver and all that. They're going to put her down. My dad, the vet was only a mile and a half away, and he goes, do you want to come for your final goodbyes? I'm like, well, Dad, I don't feel right because I'm still quarantined to be going around people. It wasn't fair, even though I think I was pretty much out of the quarantine. But I was right on the cusp of being released. I said, it's not fair. It's not, because I could still be contagious. And so I had to sit at home, while it all went down. And it's, the last few days have been amazingly, just hard. In a way, it reminded me a lot of Vinnie, but at the same time, it was Vinnie was 14 and he had cancer. It was coming. This one came out of nowhere. Yeah, and we've had her a couple times. And the first day she came over, it was just, I said, I hope my house has flood insurance, because we all cried that bad. And I wrote something the other night, and I said, I'm a guy that has a very big personality. I don't poker face. I'm loud. I'm emotional. I'm emotional good. I'm emotional bad sometimes. And sometimes I wish I can shut my emotions off when they hurt, but I can't. I can never do that. And a friend of mine once told me when Hank Sisko was first sick, and he could see I was upset, and he goes, you know what, Tone? He goes, it only means that you care. Yeah. So I told Rich before we all got together on, I started writing today. Today was slow at work, and I started writing. And I started writing about my dog Adam that I had in in the 80s and 90s. So about him. I started writing about Vinnie. I haven't even gotten to Roxy yet, and I'm 7 pages in. And I will post on social media. And I said, and if people don't read it, that's fine. It's for me. It's for me as, just putting, therapy out there for myself. Yeah. So, we've all been through it. Rick, I know you've been through it, with the Golden, and it's not fun. It's hard. But you look at it like this. All the greatness you get out of it, and all the joy and happiness and great memories, you still have to go through that bad memory and that, painful memory.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope that if he becomes somebody's dog, or she becomes somebody's dog on the other side, that it's not Bernie Madoff, right? Because he just died.
It was funny you mentioned him, and ironic that he just passed away. You know, not that anybody should miss the guy.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about him about 2 weeks ago, and my dad and I were on a walk, and we were just talking about different topics and different people, and a lot of people that are really cold-hearted, and not good people that'll do things to steal from other people, to benefit themselves. And when Bernie, if you go back and you look at it, when Bernie first, got nailed for this scheme, and he was getting thrown in prison, I said, what you need to do, and I said, and ironically, because I was watching the movie that day, was trading places, with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd and Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici, and they said it. Eddie Murphy said, the best thing you do to a rich person, make him a poor person. Take a guy like Bernie Madoff, and you make him start scrubbing toilets. His wife was, pissed off when he got thrown in jail. She was, basically, fuck him, but I still get, a monthly allowance of a couple million, right? I don't get my money taken away. And they're like, well, yeah, you do. You shit, this is stolen money. And she was, pissed off, wait a minute, no, you take a person like that that's so used to having people, cater to them and, do everything for them. No, what you make them is basically a servant. You make them, cleaning floors with a toothbrush and, all little shit that. Because that's how you punish them.
Yeah. So, yeah, he isn't with us anymore, thank God. Yeah. I guess, well, it's probably in hell.
Yeah.
Lovely. Anyway,
being a football fan, he always reminded me.
Go ahead.
He always reminded me of the guy that owned the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, everybody's bitching about Jeffrey Lurie right now, and he's doing this and doing that. Hey, Jeffrey at least, spent some money and brought us a championship. The guy we had before him, Norman Brayman, they said was a soulless, cold-blooded. He would actually fine players if they took an extra pair of socks, but he paid himself off. Aside from owning the team and making a profit from owning the team, for a tax break, he actually paid himself an $8 million salary a year. That was back 30 years ago.
Wow.
But they said just a mean, heartless, cold-blooded, people like that. And this guy, you lose some great players and people like a guy like Reggie White, who died 15 years ago, who was a minister and a philanthropist and did a lot of great for people. He died at 43 years old, younger than I am now. And this guy, Norm Brayman, still alive. I'm like, well, this guy just croaked.
Well,
can we trade?
What they say.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what that says about us. Just kidding. This weekend, we got a lot of boxing coming up. The Ben Askren card actually has a couple other decent fights. It's headlined by Regis Prograis and Ivan Redkach. It's going to be on the Fight TV network. Regis is 25-1. Redkach is 23-5 with one draw at super lightweight. Redkach, though, has lost 3 of his last 6. Well, Prograis only has 1 loss in his last 6. His only loss. And then we've got middleweights. Lorenzo Simpson, 9-0, fighting Francisco Emmanuel Torres, who's 16-3. You got Jake Paul, 2-0 as a boxer, fighting Ben Askren, who's in his debut as a boxer. So there's many MMA fights. And then you have heavyweights. Steve Cunningham versus Frank Mir. We talked about this briefly.
I heard about
a few episodes ago. Now it's a reality. This is going to be on this card. 29-9-1 for Steve. Debut for Frank. So we'll see how that goes for him. There's also a big card down in Derry, New Hampshire.
Mir's originally supposed to fight Tarver?
Yeah.
That was supposed to be originally Antonio Tarver, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I think it was.
Maybe. That's probably why I brought it up last time. But anyway, there's some fights going on in Derry, New Hampshire. I'm not going to be able to make it, but it's going to be in the middle of a snowstorm, so I don't even know if they're going to have it Saturday. Maybe it'll be done by then. Who knows? But there's a ton of. I've never seen a card with more fights, but I believe it's been split up between a day card and a night card, so that might explain it. We've got. We're gonna have a piece on the website about it tonight or tomorrow for Saturday anyway. But anyway, yeah, there's some interesting fights on there. Kendrick Ball Jr. 15-1-2 against Brian Vera, who's 28-16. That one's for a title. The vacant WBC United States silver super middleweight title. And then you got Larry Smith and Francis Hogan fighting for the vacant USA New Hampshire State super welterweight title. Francis is 4-0. Larry is 12-45-2. Yikes. Believe it or not, though, that's not the worst record of the week. We're going to get to that in a few minutes here. But another card we're talking about here is the DAZN. That's how you got to say it, right? DAZN, DAZN. That card.
DAZN.
Hollywood, Florida. We got Demetrius Andrade. 29-0, looking for big 30, number 30. Over Liam Williams, 23-2-1. That's for the WBO World Middleweight title. And then we got Carlos Gongora, also looking for a milestone win. He's at 19-0, looking for 20. He's at super middleweight, fighting Christopher Pearson, who's 17-2, for the IBO World Super Middleweight title. And this one might appear like a mismatch, but maybe we don't know enough about Muhammad Rasul here. Muhammad Rasul Majidov comes in at 3-0 at heavyweight, fighting Andrei Fedosov, who's 31-3. Welcome to boxing, heavyweight. I don't know what the story is with this 3-0 guy, but that's a big bite to chew. Fourth fight. In the United Kingdom, we got some decent ones leading off the action. Danny Dignam, 13-0 at middleweight, fighting Andrei Sorokin, who's 19-1. That's for the WBO European middleweight title. And then light heavyweights, Dan Aziz, 12-0, fighting Ricky Summers, 17-2-1 for the BBBOC English light heavyweight title. And we got a Joe Ham in action. Super bantamweight, 16-2, fighting Jack Bateson, who is 12-0. That's a bunch of fillers for the rest of the card there. Let's see if we can find this other one here. We got the toughest guy in Italy to talk about, Tony.
Okay.
Fight card
The
in
Pope?
Italy. No. Find it. Alright, let's do this one first while we're waiting. Female fight, Hannah Gabriels and Martha Patricia Lara Gaetan. And guess what? It's a heavyweight fight. Gabriels is 20-2 with one draw, fighting Martha, who's 11-9. This one's for the vacant WBC World Female Heavyweight title and the vacant World Boxing Association World Female Light Heavyweight title. How can you have the light heavyweight title and the heavyweight title on the line in the same fight? Weird.
I know.
Anyway, Encarnacion Diaz at middleweight, he's 7-1, fighting Dennis Douglin, who's 22-8. I believe he was a former guest of ours too, at some point. But yeah, that's.
I think he was. I've actually went to a couple of his fights. Mama's Plate, they call him.
This one is in San Jose, Costa Rica. Where's this other one that I saw? Italia. Oh, Jesus fight of the week. I thought I just saw it. I have to search it. Here it is. Okay. Luigi. That's who his name is. Go figure. Okay. Saturday. Big fight. Mirko Marchetti coming in at 5-2 in the welterweight division. Fighting the toughest guy in Italy. No, hopefully not. His name is Luigi Mantegna. His record is 2 wins, 83 losses, and 2 draws.
Wow.
83. Oof. Luigi, stick to the video games, buddy. Go hang out with Mario for a little while.
Yeah.
That's about it for the upcoming boxing. Now we got a shit ton of MMA to talk about. We've got Bellator 256 just happened last weekend. I did not get to see the ABC card. I didn't realize it was on in the middle of the day, so I didn't watch that. But I watched this one, Vader versus Machida, and this is a rematch. Machida knocked him out the first time, but Vader pretty much dominated the rematch here, and looked like he's going to do pretty well in this tournament-style situation. He's got some pretty tough dudes coming at him. He's also got a guy that beat him before, again, in Rumble Johnson, who, if he wins his fight, could end up being the guy that faces off with him. He's in a different bracket. He's on the other side of the bracket, so that could be the final. We'll see. But yeah, Vader beating Machida by unanimous decision. Used a lot of wrestling, a lot of ground and pound. Machida looked pretty beaten up by the end of it. He definitely was not successful with defending the takedown or trying to use his karate to great effect. And then Liz Carmouche in the co-main event beating Vanessa Porto by unanimous decision. A pretty decent fight. Liz just obviously more experienced, more technical. And then Adam Borks over Jeremy Kennedy. That was a little bit of an entertaining scrap. Kat Zingano took care of Olivia Parker pretty quick. That was definitely a gap in experience there. And technique-wise, Kat's very good with the submissions. She's got the armbar. 2 minutes and 56 seconds into the fight. Also had Dan Moret beating Goiti Yamauchi by split decision. Dalton Rosta over Tony Johnson by unanimous decision. Talita Nogueira over Jessica Borga, same result. A lot of unanimous decisions. Jornel Lugo over Cass Bell by UD. Cody Law over Nathan Kareem. Then we have UFC on ESPN 22 coming up this weekend. Bellator 257 as well. But the one from last Saturday, not in prime time, but on, I think it was like in the 3 o'clock hour. I don't know what time they had on. But, yep. Kevin Holland, not surprisingly, had a pretty bad performance again. Over Marvin Vettori got the win there by unanimous decision, won all 5 rounds. But from what I read, I didn't get to see it. But Kevin didn't really do that great. Did you get to see this one, Tom?
Yeah, Vettori out-grappled him. It was Holland could not get his game plan. He couldn't stop the takedowns. Holland did good in the first round, but not enough. Hung in, but it was an easy decision. So Vettori's right there for a title shot.
And then we had another UD win for the co-main event. Arnold Allen beating Sadiq Youssef. And I did not hear much about that, but people were teasing our former guest, Sam Alvey, losing to Julian Marquez by rear naked choke. Somebody put out a picture of the choke in action and said, "There's that Sam Alvey smile." As he was getting choked out. I thought that was a little cruel. But he made it to the second round, 2 minutes and 7 seconds in. young up-and-coming guy against a little bit more experienced, old crafty dude. But, Sam's just he's like a Forrest Griffin out there in a modern world. He's very basic type of 1-2 puncher, and kicks a little bit here and there, but he just doesn't have that dynamic skill set that a lot of these younger people are picking up sooner. Because when he probably got into the game, all that wasn't important. It was like wrestling and jiu-jitsu that were the things that people were pushing back then more than anything else. Now it's like striking has become king. Because especially in the UFC with all the focus they put on, fight of the night and all that. And you got to put on a show to get advanced on the pay scale. But anyway, we definitely wish Sam luck and bouncing back from this one, and maybe pick up a new coach or something. But yeah, he's happy either way. We know that. He'll smile after a loss just as big as he will after a win. Mackenzie Dern beating Nina Nunes by armbar submission. No surprise there. That was 4 minutes and 48 seconds into that one. Everyone's predicted that one last week. Daniel Rodriguez beating Mike Perry by unanimous decision. And I got to tell you, best part about that was Mike's reaction today to all the people, or not today, but the day after the fight, to all the people that were criticizing him for not moving his feet, not moving his head. He says, all you people do is move your lips and your fingers. All you people know how to do, he said. And you're telling me to move my head and move my feet. All you're doing is flapping your gums, basically, is what he was saying. He also said something that Tony can relate to. That he's had discrimination from people in the boxing gyms, he's claiming. And when he goes to try to train boxing, people tell him not to go to boxing gyms because they move differently than MMA fighters. So he was discouraged from going to them. But now he thinks he needs to.
Yeah, but that's not inaccurate. If you want to train like a certain discipline, and you really want to focus on being the best at that particular, you don't go to a gym, that really focuses on something else. If I want to train for boxing, I don't want to go to a gym that really focuses on mixed martial arts and grappling and takedowns and jiu-jitsu and things like that, and then have a guy there that kind of can teach some striking. But I'm like, if I'm already, ahead of you in experience and knowledge, then you're not helping me. You're actually hindering me. If you're going to train for a certain type of style, you don't want to go somewhere that doesn't really understand that style, that they focus on something completely different. Because you're right, it's different moves, it's different balance, it's different defense, it's different offense.
And look what GSP did when he wanted to get better at boxing. He went to Freddie Roach.
Yeah. Exactly.
Exactly.
So, anyway, we also had Joe Solecki beating Jim Miller by unanimous decision. Matthews Gamrot over Scott Holtzen by knockout. Second round, 1 minute and 22 seconds in. I'm not going to read the rest because we want to get done before midnight here. Let's see. We got upcoming fights now. 2 upcoming fights. We'll start with UFC on ESPN 22, they're calling it. Whittaker versus Gastelum. Now this is a tough one for me to pick because we never know which Kelvin's going to show up. And Kelvin has a very special connection to me because I could have interviewed this guy. The year that I got the press packet for, I think it was Fox Sports or something like that. It was going to Fox. One of the channels was going to have the Ultimate Fighter. And so they mailed out this press packet to a bunch of people, and I got it. And I was like, well, I guess they didn't get the memo about how, me and the UFC had been to legal battle. So anyway, I thought it was crazy, but I was like, oh, there are people obviously don't know, the beef between us, and I'm not about to go tell the UFC about it, but I'll take advantage of it. And they offered to let me interview any of the fighters, and I was like, well, who's going to win this thing? Kelvin was the youngest kid to ever win the Ultimate Fighter, I believe. He was like 18 years old when he won it. And so I looked at his record, and I was just like, no way this kid's going to win. He ended up winning it, of course. So, yeah, I blew my shot at interviewing him there. But, yeah, he's a very humble kid. He was reading his Bible in his hotel room on the show when he was getting ready to do his fight into the house, So, just very unassuming, good kid. He was working as a bail bondsman. And it turned out to be the big star of the show after all was said and done. And now he's fighting Robert Whittaker, who has been a title holder. And Robert's 22-5. Kelvin's 16-6. He's been figuring out the weight issues. He's not missed weight in quite a while. But it's just, you never know which kind of a fighter you're going to see from him sometimes, especially in the last few years. He's kind of withering a little bit as he ages in the cage. But Whittaker is kind of on a little bit of a slide too. He hasn't been as dominant as he has been. He's been a little bit up and down, and he's had some wear and tear in his last few fights. So this is a toss-up. I really don't know who to pick. If he put a gun to my head, I'd say Kelvin. But I really like Robert. His style, his reach. He's a taller fighter, so that's obviously going to come into play. It just depends on how crafty Kelvin can get. And a lot of people point out that of all the fighters that Izzy fought at his own natural weight there, that Kelvin did the most damage to him. So there's that. Israel Adesanya you're talking about. Anyway, so that's the main event. Co-main event is Jeremy Stephens versus Dracar Close. Jeremy has got experience up to the wazoo, 28-18. Dracar 11-2-1. Don't know a heck of a lot about him. I don't particularly remember any great fights I've seen him in, but you can never underestimate a guy with that kind of a win percentage. It's pretty good. So we'll see how that one goes. I really don't know. Arlovsky versus Chase Sherman. Now that's an interesting one. Andre 30-20. Chase is 15-6. I gotta say this is almost hands down. It seems it's gonna have to be a loser goes home fight if Andre loses. Loser leaves town. Chase maybe not so much. He's still young, but Arlovsky has not had a ton of luck lately. So we'll see how that goes. But Abdul Razak Al Hassan also on the card, 10-3, fighting Jacob Malkoun, 4-1. Luis Pena 8-3, fighting Alex Munoz, 6-1. Tracy Cortez 8-1 versus Justine Kish, who's 7-3. Alexander Romanov undefeated at 13-0. Fighting Juan Espino, who's 10-1. So just one loss and 23 wins between them. Jessica Penne, 12-5, fighting Lupita Godinez, who's 5-0. We got Gerald Mearshart, 31-4, fighting Bartosz Fabinski, 15-4. Dakota Bush versus Austin Hubbard. Bush is 8-2. Hubbard is 12-5. And we got Zara Fern Dos Santos, 6-4, fighting Josie Ann Nunez, who's 7-1. Tony Gravely in the first fight of the night, he's 20-6, fighting Anthony Burchak, who's 16-7. That's got to be the most experience I've ever heard of at the first fight of the night. And then finally we have Bellator 257. This is another main event that decides the course of this tournament they're having at light heavyweight. This is going to be Phil Davis in the main event against Alexander Nemkov. Vadim Nemkov, sorry. Phil is 22-5. Vadim is 12-2. Oh, jeez. Anyway, we'll just finish this out and call the show. Lost the guys there. Corey Anderson, he is 14-5, fighting Dovledzan Yagshimurdov. He is 18-5-1. And then we have Paul Daly coming back. He is 41-17-2, fighting Sabah Homasi, who is 15-8. That seems like a tune-up fight for Mr. Daly. We got Vader Artiega, 5-4, fighting Desiree Yanez, who's 5-2. Julius Anglikas, who is 9-1, fighting Gregory Milliard, who is 12-5. Julia Budd, 14-3, fighting Diana Silva, who's 9-5. Steve Mowry, 8-0, fighting Sean Asher, who's 13-3-1. And we're going to read this one and finish up. Oh, here it is. Steve Mowry, 8-0, fighting Sean Asher, 13-3-1. Also, Grashik Bozinian, 10-4, fighting DeMarcus Jackson, who's 11-4. Raymond Daniels back in action. He's 2-1, fighting Peter Stananik, who is 4-4. Carl Albrechtsen is 10-3, fighting Victor Nemkov, who is 37-1. Pedro Carvalho, 11-4, fighting J.J. Wilson, who's 7-0. Lance Gibson Jr. is 3-0, fighting Marcus Sorin, who's 6-2. In the first fight of the night, identical records, 14-3. Saul Rogers versus Mads Burnell. And that's going to do it for us tonight, folks. Until next week, when we'll be talking about all these fights. Thanks for stopping by. Adios.